All right. One other thing before I answer questions. God, it's almost, that's not quite been an hour, but we're getting there. Okay. Hard Knocks, in-season Hard Knocks. Had a little news about this yesterday that's probably going to get overlooked. But when I watched the first episode of the in-season Hard Knocks this year with the Dolphins, it was obvious the Dolphins want nothing to do with it. They've said it, but the meeting where Mike McDaniel greets the team as they come back from their bye-week break, it's clear. It's clear McDaniel wants nothing to do with it. And why should he? He's got enough to worry about without having to also, on top of everything else he has to do as coach of an NFL team in the stretch run of the season, worry about the extent to which the process and the product of in-season Hard Knocks is going to potentially distract his players. He doesn't want it to, but he has to worry about whether it will. Maybe it won't, but he has to worry about whether it will. I got enough shit to worry about, NFL. Why are you making me, as the coach of a playoff contender, worry about this? There's so much obsession in the NFL about competitive balance and competitive integrity. And you're going to pick one team that's in the playoff hunt and say, you get to deal with this thing that no one else has to deal with. You get to worry about what's going to show up on Tuesday night every week for as long as you're still alive in the playoff chase and in the postseason once it comes along. You have to worry about the impact of that. You have to worry in advance what is going to be used against us. What are we going to be able to catch and filter out? Are we going to use good judgment? Are we going to use bad judgment? Do I have time to watch the whole episode and screen it to make sure that there's nothing in there? Am I going to carve out that extra hour to watch it? Or am I going to trust that somebody else is going to make the right decision? What is going to get through the 5-hole that's going to create a problem for us? You know, there was a scene about the universal language of ass whooping, that you can go to Greece, and if you see someone beating someone up, you don't need to be able to speak the same language to say it. And it, you know, could that be problematic? It kind of stretched out for a while, and you know, Tyreek Hill's making kind of a thing about it, and we know his history, even though they didn't mention it during Hard Knocks. Like, it gets a little awkward. Do you want that to be something that you have to deal with when none of the other playoff contenders have to deal with it? So what I learned as I was poking around on how the Dolphins ended up on Hard Knocks, because I asked the NFL when it was first announced, and they ignored me, as they often do. When they don't want to answer the question, they just ignore me, forces me to ask it again, forces me to remember to ask it again. Well, I forgot to go back and ask a second time. So I'll say I asked them late last month and they didn't respond, but I have found out there's a formula for determining who's on in-season Hard Knocks. It's similar to the formula for who's on preseason Hard Knocks. And the preseason Hard Knocks formula is the teams are exempt if they have a first-year head coach, new head coach, doesn't have to be a brand new head coach, just a new coach for their team. 2, they've done it within the last 10 years. And 3, they've made it to the playoffs either of the last 2 seasons. The in-season formula is the first 2, but not the third. Doesn't matter if you've made it to the playoffs. Doesn't matter if you're making it to the playoffs. That doesn't matter. As long as you don't have a new coach this year, and as long as you haven't done it in the last 10 years, you can be tapped on the shoulder. Now, I don't know whether or not that means preseason and in-season, because this is only the 3rd year of in-season Hard Knocks. It was Cardinals, Colts, and now the Dolphins. If preseason applies as well, then that knocks a few other teams out of the mix. But it doesn't help the Dolphins because they did preseason Hard Knocks 2012. So the window was open. If that 10-year window applies both to preseason and in-season, and I can't see why it wouldn't, but if it does, doesn't matter for the Dolphins. So they got forced to do it. They didn't want to do it, and it's highly unfair to them. If I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm pissed about this. Why does my team have to worry about this? If I'm the Dolphins, I'm upset about it. If I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm livid about it. Why do I have to worry about it? And John Harbaugh doesn't. And Doug Peterson doesn't. And Andy Reid doesn't. Chiefs would have been a great candidate, but you know what? They had Patrick Mahomes on the Netflix show. So, we don't need the Chiefs. We already made our money off of showcasing Patrick Mahomes. So that's the other point too. My son and I were talking about this last night, and I think I mentioned this in the story yesterday. Is it worth it to the NFL? Is it worth it to put one of your teams at a competitive disadvantage because they have to worry about this on top of everything else? What are you getting out of it, NFL? What's the bonus? In season, late season, we got Monday night, we got Thursday night, We just had 3 games on Thursday. We got 6 standalone games this week between Monday night and Monday night. Monday night, we had the Chiefs-Eagles game. The 3 games on Sunday. Hell, we got 7 if you count that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Black Friday, Sunday Night Football, and then we got Monday night Bears-Vikings. We got a lot of standalone games. We got a lot of content. Why do you need an hour on Tuesday night where you've got more content, you've got more stuff? Why do you need that? What are you getting out of that? How much money are you making out of it? How much exposure are you getting out of it? And what's the cost? The cost is you're creating an extra distraction for one playoff team that other playoff teams don't have. That's not fair. Whoever it is in any given year, if it's a playoff contender that gets the assignment, it is unfair to them to have that burden of worrying about what's going to be said, what's going to make it to the show, how's it going to affect the team. You know, McDaniel spoke earlier this week in terms of the safe space. The safe space has been invaded. That's a factor too. Even if there's never a distraction directly from the show, the mere fact that their room has been invaded by cameras and microphones changes the dynamic. It just does. And that's your place where you should be able to not have to worry about what is said or how it's said. You just shouldn't have to. There shouldn't be anything happening there that would take that and put it out into public view. So I'm with the Dolphins on this. It stinks, and it's a distraction, and it is a competitive disadvantage. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.